Good evening, church. Hi, welcome. We are so glad you're here. I was really afraid it was going to be Donna and me tonight. So I am really, really thrilled to see all the smiling faces. Thank you so much for taking time to come tonight. My name is Marilyn Mulvihill. I am the co-chair of the Justice Ministry here at St. Brendan's Church. Donna Ayala, right there in the pink, is also a co-chair. And we are delighted to have Casa San Jose here this evening. What is happening with our immigrant community is beyond tragic. That's all you can say. It's beyond tragic what's happening. And so we wanted to take an opportunity to talk about not just bemoan what's going on, but take action. What can we do? So that's why we're here tonight. And we welcome Casa San Jose and we thank them for what they're doing. I first want to introduce to you the founder of Casa San Jose, Sister Janice. She founded, how many years ago, Sister Janice?
Well, Casa San Jose opened its doors in August of 2013, but I've been working with Latino immigrants in the city for over 20 years.
Thank you for what you do. Also with us is my contact, Marissa Tobias. She has helped to pull this whole thing together. And I want to introduce our speaker tonight from Casa. His name is, to me,
Jaime
Martinez. I'm so sorry, Jaime.
No worries.
He is going to talk to us about what we can do to fulfill our baptismal covenant. So first of all, we're going to open with a word of prayer from our priest in charge, Mother Nancy.
It's always good to, what do I need to be? Right in front of the podium. Hello. Stand up there. Okay. Oh, it is. Hello, all Zoom folks. We appreciate, we're so glad that you are Zooming in. Thank you so much. This is, as Marilyn said, a topic that we really need to understand so we can support it and the people who are just being traumatized by it. So let us pray, shall we? Come, Holy Spirit, come and be with us. Come and move among our hearts. Come fill this land with your compassion and your love for those who are downtrodden, who are weary, whom our Statue of Liberty says to come to America. And so, Lord, help us to model your behavior of welcoming the stranger, of eating with those who no one else would eat with, clothing those who are naked, visiting those who are incarcerated, and to, Lord, just to love your people. So help us, teach us what we are to do. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Right. Good evening, everyone. It's such an exciting evening. Thank you for allowing Casa San Jose the opportunity to speak to you all today about the important issue of immigration, not just in our country, not just on the news, but here in our corner of the world, in our neighborhood. And it's especially exciting to come out to this part of the city because this is where I grew up. I'm actually from McCandless. I ran for school board here in North Allegheny 2 years ago, so you might have seen my signs around. And so it's always such a pleasure to come back to North Allegheny territory and to speak to my fellow Tigers about these sorts of issues. Is there like a little clicker or does this work? All right, beautiful, lovely. So a few things we're going to talk about today include what's happening with immigration right now, the state of immigration in our country, and then I'll get smaller and smaller in our state, in our community, in our specific pocket of Pennsylvania. I'll talk to you guys about what Casa San Jose does and how we're responding to the situation, how you guys are called to be a part of what we're doing, and then I'll take all of your questions. So I'll stop a few different times and I'll take your questions then, but super excited. So I want to start out with this image. And I think this helps to contextualize what it is that's taking place in this country. For those of you who don't recognize what's behind me, this is the summer of last year, the Republican National Convention, broadcast on national TV over the course of a few days. This was a still taken from, I think it's like NBC or something like that. They had rally signs printed that said mass deportations now, right? A big central part of the campaign last year and of the national discourse was the invasion at our border, right? The problem, the immigrant problem, right? We're hearing negative connotations about immigration. And it's become so mainstream that we're seeing things like this on national television, broadcast without any sort of shame, right? And much to my surprise and chagrin, I guess, this is the platform that won. This is the platform that won in Franklin Park as well, where we are right now, right? So it's important to remember that a lot of our neighbors voted for somebody who was very openly putting these signs up on national TV, right? Not saying that the folks who support this are all bad people, but I think it demonstrates that there is an apathy towards immigrants in our society right now. It is easy to be silent. It is easy to scapegoat. It is extremely easy to call immigrants a problem and the focus of our woes. And we see this here at home, right? I've seen it here at home. When I've knocked on doors, I see it here. So, you know, we got to pop this bubble that we're all in. If you guys took the time to come out here today, it's because you care. It's because you care about our immigrant neighbors. And that's wonderful. But that's not the majority of the community that we're surrounded by. That's not the majority of Southwestern Pennsylvania. In fact, the plurality of voters in this election are pretty apathetic about immigrants in our country. So keep that in mind, right? We are buried in our social media algorithms. We are buried in the kinds of spaces that we choose to be in or not choose to be in. And what we have managed to do is siloed ourselves. So one of the overwhelming themes of today, and one of the overwhelming things I believe of our Christian faith, is that we need to be apostolic, right? To be apostolic means to go outwards, right? We are not to focus in and to be pure and small and go inwards. We are to go out. And so that means to go out and to search out the marginalized and to search out the folks that we can get close to and see the face of Christ in them. But it also means within our circles of like-mindedness, reaching out into the people that may disagree with us on this and not being afraid, having the courage to be able to speak truth to power. That's really what we need at this moment in time, especially in this community, as somebody who's been very deeply ingrained in it. So there's some myths about immigrants in this country that we want to debunk real quick. If you're sitting at Thanksgiving dinner, your cranky uncle might say a few of these things. And so it's good for you to have talking points to come back with. First one is that immigrants are criminals, right? And that they increase the crime rates. But in fact, numerous studies show that US-born citizens are far more likely to commit crimes than immigrants. Second is immigrants take advantage of public benefits. I mean, we've all heard it. They're leeching off of our society. They're leeching off of our benefits. They're just sitting here and mooching off of public resource and our taxpayer dollars. That's unequivocally false. And in fact, undocumented immigrants, people without a legal status, do have an ability to pay taxes through what's known as an ITIN number, an individual tax identification number. This ITIN allows them to pay into the system without receiving any sort of benefits back. They're not eligible to receive Section 8 housing. They're not eligible for SNAP benefits. They're not eligible for Social Security and Medicare. Exactly. All those federal public benefits, they are not eligible for. There's a lot of strings attached to the resources that we give under-resourced people in this country. And unfortunately, they fall through the cracks a lot of the time. But they do pay into our system much of the time. because they are not here to leech off of others, but to work and to provide and to be contributing members of society. Just today, I got to drive a fella my age, a year younger than me, actually, who was in a detention center, in an ICE detention facility, back to his house. He lives in Wexford, so he's right in our backyard. And he told me very clearly, no one comes here because for pleasure, and just to stay here and to go through all of this stigma and all this marginalization and all of, like, the work that we have to do just to be able to exist here. We don't come here just to leech off of public benefits. We come here because we have dreams. And what was the worst part of being in that detention facility for me, he told me, was seeing hundreds of people every week getting cycled out for deportation in that detention facility, having their American dream extinguished. Right? So what we fight for is not just our Christian mission, although that's at the center of it, right? It's not just seeking out the marginalized, but we're also fighting for the American dream as Americans, right? Making sure that everybody has access to that and expanding who has access to that. That with hard work and ambition, you can get anywhere you want. I know that we're all believers in that, and I know that our neighbors are too. And this is that work, quite literally. Lastly, I've heard this. I went to a dentist clinic here in the area. I was talking about how to make their place safer for the immigrants that work for them. And they told me, oh, they're only deporting criminals. They're not deporting the good ones like the people here. Now, there's a lot that is a little difficult with that phrase, right? Because I don't know about you guys, but calling good immigrants and bad immigrants, I don't think that's something that we need to get into judging other folks like that. I don't have the qualifications to be doing that sort of stuff. But beyond that, almost universally, what we are seeing, I'm the community defense organizer at Casa. So when we hear about a raid or a detention, kind of falls to me to figure out how we need to mobilize our community to respond. When that happens, I'm not getting calls from somebody who murdered someone. I'm not getting calls from drug traffickers. I'm getting calls from mothers and fathers. I'm getting calls from single parents with minor children. I'm getting calls from the mothers of young kids younger than me that were detained. That's the sort of stuff that we're seeing, and we're seeing it here in our backyard. Now, going along the lines of the political climate, right? The political climate has affirmed what the government is doing, right? Supposedly the government has a mandate. They went crazy starting day one. They have only gotten crazier. These 3 screenshots of executive orders are just from day one. And I want to point out 2 specific executive orders that the Trump administration has signed in the first few days of the administration. Number 1 is the expansion of what's known as expedited removal. When somebody is detained, sometimes if they have a very heavy criminal record, they become eligible for a process known as expedited removal. They do not get to see the inside of a courtroom. They do not get to see a judge, like an immigration judge. They do not get to plead their case. Because of the criminal record that they have, they are simply whisked out of the country. They are deported without due process, so to speak, right? Now, day one, the Trump administration expanded eligibility of expedited removal to anybody who has been in the country with an undocumented status for under 2 years. Think of all of the crises that have been taking place in our world in the last 2 years. All of the reasons that somebody would come to the United States to flee political persecution, to flee poverty and hunger, to see family, all of these sorts of issues, right? To pursue their version of the American dream. And they didn't have the time to wait a generation for a specific kind of visa. They didn't have the opportunity in life to go to the best kind of university and get the right kind of engineering degree to be able to come into the country. But they knew that the quote on the Statue of Liberty that you mentioned earlier was meant for them as well. And so they came. Now they're at risk of never being able to plead their case, never being able to see the inside of a courtroom, and being deported within 10 hours is what we heard an ICE agent say just down the street on Ohio River Boulevard. Another one that we've seen is just recently, they are enforcing a law where everybody has to be in a federal registry. And so if folks who are undocumented or who don't have legal status don't put all of their personal information into this registry through the government, they will not only be liable for crossing the border in a non-legal way, but they will also have like criminal charges attached, and they could end up in federal prison. Something that's important for you all to note is that crossing the border without a legal status, unauthorized border crossings, are not criminal violations. They are civil violations. It's a civil offense. You know what else is a civil offense? Speeding, jaywalking, passing the red light, and just going through the red light when you're not supposed to. Those are all civil offenses. So in reality, all of this talk about criminal this, criminal that, we need to have a little bit of reframing because there's a lot of political theater happening. Overall, I've just mentioned two. There's a whole bunch of executive orders that have been signed. They are sometimes contradictory. They are very punitive. They're meant to be cruel, confusing, and chaotic to families, pushing them further into the shadows, pushing them away from resources, pushing them away from their communities and their neighborhoods, making them more distrustful of their neighbors. And it's a scary situation for everybody. We're only 4 months into this. Things are going to get worse. There's a budget that is going to get passed where more resources are going to be attached to immigration enforcement and to criminalizing the immigrant community. There is going to be more emphasis. There's going to be more time for ICE agents to figure out new strategies to pick up folks beyond what we've already been seeing. And we're going to get into that. Really dire stuff. And so with that, we really need your help. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about Moshannon Valley Processing Center. This is the one ICE detention facility here in the state of Pennsylvania, or the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, for those of you who are particular. So Moshannon Valley used to be a private for-profit federal prison. During President Biden's term, he signed an executive order banning the renewal of these contracts with private for-profit federal prisons. And so it ceased to be a federal prison, and it instead became an ICE detention facility. So it's not felons there anymore, but it's immigrants. Same bones, same foundations, slightly different protocols in terms of their detention protocols, but it's the same place. It's a detention facility that's a prison with bones of a prison, right? When somebody gets detained here in Allegheny County or in Pittsburgh, they will end up at an office on the south side. 3000 Sydney Street is the address. So it's on the eastern end of the Hot Meadow Bridge. So if you know where the FBI building is, if you know where Pages is, sort of in that area, that neighborhood. They will end up in this facility. Well, they will get processed. They'll get processed as if they were entering a carceral system. Fingerprints, mugshot. They will ask them about their lives, ask them to identify themselves. And then they will be put into a white van and they will be shackled at the wrists, at the hips, so that they're like this, and then also at the ankles. And then they will be taken 3 hours away to Moshannon Valley Processing Center. Moshannon Valley Processing Center is in Phillipsburg, Pennsylvania. This is central PA. It's about 40 minutes from Penn State, State College, Pennsylvania. So really like farmland, right? And the average stay is between 90 and 120 days. That's right. When folks get there, they're categorized into their risk level, high, medium, and low. And they'll have shirts that are different colors designating their risk level. Something that's particular here is that if you are high risk, red, it's a red shirt, doesn't mean necessarily that you have a super heavy criminal record. It can also mean that you were transferred from another ICE facility to this one. So what we're seeing with ICE right now is they're playing musical chairs with detainees so that they can keep them away from access to counsel and so that families can't really contact them. We saw that with Mahmoud Khalil. They put him in Louisiana. He was originally in New Jersey, and they were kind of bouncing him around. And so these folks that are being transferred inevitably end up with folks who they should not end up with in these cells. We have reported instances of violence. We know that folks who are in the red only get 1 hour in the morning and then 1 hour at night to be outside and to breathe fresh air. If not, they're in their cells. For folks who are low risk, it's 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon, evening. Not good food. And as it says up above me, riddled with human rights violations. It's a place where they don't treat you like an immigrant. They treat you like a criminal. So this is run by the GEO group. This is the private for-profit group that runs the prison. And they're paid as a base pay $3 million a month by the federal government on top of a per head daily rate. So they will get paid more money if there are more red shirts, and they'll, there's a little bit of a different designation. There's a discrepancy in money per head, depending on the risk level of the individual. And so you can imagine the more red shirts they have in that prison, the better it is for them. So they're getting, I think the last figure I saw was $3.4 million a month. This facility can house up to 1,800 people. As of today, when I heard from this guy my age who had been there were 1,456 people housed there. And hundreds of folks are getting cycled in and out, deported, detained, transferred, all of that sort of stuff. So this right here is really important because it's important for you all to recognize that this directly affects you, right? These are your taxpayer dollars that are funding the exploitation of these individuals, being held when they're not risks to society for the most part, and bouncing them around, making it hard for them to access their counsel, their legal counsel. And ultimately, we own that because we pay into that system, right? Super unfortunate, but it means that we have all the more responsibility to do something. 75 people a day is the quota that we last heard ICE uses in Western Pennsylvania. So there's maybe like 25, 30 people in here. Imagine up to like around triple the number in this room disappearing every single day across Western PA. That's from Erie down to the state line with West Virginia. That's a lot of people. And these are all, families. Primarily, this is an ACLU report. We saw that they're primarily targeting Latin American men that work in low wage industries. So think your roofers, the construction workers, the back of house, the bus boys, right? That sort of stuff is a lot of what we're seeing. They are knowingly separating parents from their children in a third of all arrests. They are routinely violating people's civil rights. They are very inconsistent with their paperwork when they are detaining people. State and local law enforcement is collaborating with ICE. We know that McCandless police, the last time we asked them, did collaborate with ICE. So we assume they are now. That's just a hop and a skip, right, over to McCandless. And as I said, consistent patterns of sloppy completions of I-213 forms, which are the forms that they use to justify detaining somebody. And so super sketch, just to put it that way. Important to remember that at the end of the day, I've thrown a lot of numbers at you, thrown a lot of statistics, but these folks aren't statistics. They're our brothers and sisters. They are human beings. They are families, mothers, fathers, workers, taxpayers, business owners. And above all, there are human beings, right? And I believe that you share this idea with me, but no human being is illegal. And so that is the ethos that we carry at Casa San Jose. And we do not ask folks about their immigration status when they walk in through the door. We see everybody as a brother or as a sister, and we find solutions to their problems. So a little bit about what we do. We connect, we support, we advocate for and with the Latino community in Southwestern Pennsylvania. As Sister Janice said, August of 2013 was when it started in the basement of a Lutheran church. And what I always like to say, I'm a little embarrassed because you're here now, and I'm going to tell the story, but the way I like to think about how Casa was founded is Sister Janice and a few other people saw an issue. They saw that there was a lack of resource, and they saw that there was a need to fill in the community. And so they decided to say yes. And they didn't know what yes meant. They didn't know where that yes would take them. And now look at where we are. Now I'm here, right? Now we have over 30 employees. We have a slew of case managers that are responding to the needs of the community every single day. Anything from assistance with rent to like refugee program assistance to grocery assistance, childcare. There's a youth program developing our next generation of leaders, teaching folks ESL, English as a second language. I think you guys have an ESL program here. Lots of good work, as well as the kingdom where I live, the organizing and advocacy team, where we're making sure that we can build independence and self-sufficiency for Latinos here in Southwestern Pennsylvania, and making sure that we can give everybody in the community an ability to take ownership over the issues that are happening to immigrants and making sure they're a part of the solution. So really proud to be here and really proud to have Sister Janice here as well. And thank you for all the work that you're doing and that you have done. Yeah. So I'm going to ask you to do something today, right? And I'm going to go over what those things are. Primarily, again, as I said, I'm the community defense organizer. So I'm going to be focusing on a lot of ways in which you can respond to the immediate crises that are happening. So yeah, you can be a volunteer ESL instructor. Yeah, you can help out with our youth program. Those aren't things I'm going to touch on so much today, just because, you know, there's a lot more at hand, and I'm a bit more of an expert when it comes to these things. And highest among them, I want to talk to you all about our rapid response network. So the Casa San Jose Rapid Response Network is the embodiment of the question, what does it mean to be a good neighbor? So I pose that to you all. Something I always love to talk about is, I'll frequently speak downtown, right? And I'll always point folks across the river and say, look at Fred Rogers on the North Shore. Look at the WQED studio where he recorded, where he filmed Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. And let's think about the ways in which he called us to be a good neighbor here in Pittsburgh. The ways in which he taught us kindness and love, seeing neighbors as our brothers and sisters, right? Breaking down barriers of prejudice. We are called to do that again right now, especially right now. And a lot of people are angry, they're upset, they feel helpless, they feel frustrated. I know I felt that a lot. I felt a lot of grief in the last few months. And I recognize as well that there's not always a good opportunity to know where to begin, to channel that grief, that anger into purpose. This is the best thing that we could come up with. So we have a 24/7 ICE Watch hotline. We distribute that out to the community. We operate within Allegheny County and about 20 minutes beyond county lines. And we are seeking to go further than that soon enough. When we get a call, we will have somebody answer, a dispatcher, dispatch folks out to respond to situations. We train our neighbors how to be good neighbors, how to be watchful neighbors, how to be legal observers, how to accompany somebody in a moment where they are in need, how to potentially address law enforcement, and how to use your different forms of privilege, right, to be able to have those interactions, how to extract as much information as possible from the interactions that you're personally witnessing, from the neighbors that you're watching either being detained or being harassed or seeing their door knocked on. And then you take that back to us, you report it to us, we shoot that information out to law centers across the country that are preparing to file lawsuits against ICE for their civil rights violations. We shoot that out to the community through text to people that are affected, and we let them know, hey, something's happening in your area. Because as of now, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok are the kings of misinformation, and that's where a lot of our community is getting rumor of ICE activity. So if somebody puts out any rumor, if old Jane Smith, says, saw an ICE vehicle on McKnight Road, maybe everybody in the North Hills all of a sudden won't send their kid to school, right? Maybe that parent won't go to work and will lose out on a day's pay. We have already seen that. And so this, and your eyes and your ears, and you verifying situations for us, is a way in which we're able to provide true risk assessment to the families that we serve and to the broader immigrant community, to the people that deem themselves to be vulnerable. We let them know, hey, this was a false rumor. At CMU, for example, I don't know if anyone heard about this. At Carnegie Mellon, there was a guy that they took a picture of who had ice on his sleeve, wearing a black backpack, walking around campus. Suddenly, he's on everybody's Instagram story. Everyone's freaking out, and we get a call about it. We get a few calls about it. We dispatch our folks out, and very quickly, we come to realize that the ice on his sleeve didn't stand for Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, but for Industrial Commercial Elevator Service. Right, exactly. So funny story, great story, because false alarm, but we were able to soothe a lot of concerns all the way up to the administration very quickly because of the model that we had in place. We can do this here at home, in our backyard as well. So I'm calling on all of you to do that. We also identify and contact detained individuals. So I met this young woman from New Jersey, 24 years old, lived in Newark. She was in an abusive relationship and sought to report an instance of domestic violence. When she went down to the police station, the police didn't help her. They shackled her when they figured out that she was undocumented. And they shipped her off to Moshannon, where she spent 4 months and 3 weeks. Her family, or she had a 9-year-old son. She has a 9-year-old son. That 9-year-old son was never picked up from school. Her family did not know where she was for 3 days. It took 3 days for her to be able to make contact with them. They did not afford her a phone call. This is the situation we're in. And so we have, I'll show you the kind of neat workflow. If anybody here is a visual person, this is kind of how it works. And sort of the detention part here, we have on-call attorneys. So if anybody here is an attorney or knows an attorney, we have folks who aren't immigration attorneys, but nonetheless have a bar number and have a license to practice. And we send them to the ICE office with the information that our folks on the ground, our neighbors, gather. And they will show up and say, I'm here seeking to represent this person who I know was detained at this time. I need to speak with them. We haven't had a lot of luck. We've been doing a lot of different strategies. We've been using different strategies to try to get in contact with the people. They are denying access to counsel. Quite frankly, it's probably going to be a lawsuit at some point because what they're doing is crazy and they lie and they yell at us. I've gotten yelled at personally twice by ICE agents. It's a whole thing at the office. But all of this is extremely helpful to be able to keep the community safe. This is something that retired folks that have nothing to do will join us with. This is something that retired folks who do everything also join us with, who are in all the associations. We have students, we have professors, we have teachers, we have like ER nurses, right? People who have regular 9-to-5s, attorneys. The point is, there is no barrier to doing this sort of work, except for your attitude and your ability to accompany your neighbor, right? Your availability, we can work around. Your lack of transport or your transport, we can work around. We have a volunteer who walks around with 2 canes, and we love her because she is just as helpful as the rest of us. The more eyes and ears that we have, the better. So I'm asking all of you, if you would so kindly want to get involved, to get involved. And we have some of our volunteers in the audience as well. So I have a QR code here. If any of you guys know, feel free to scan it. This is our application form for our rapid response team. I'll also have a little sign-in sheet at the end where you can mark off if you're interested in this, and we'll send you more information. But this is a great first step. This is, quite frankly, the most high impact, low effort thing that you can do right now. So we need a lot of folks up in the north. There have been things happening in McCandless, in Cranberry, in Wexford. You guys are at the center of it all. We would love your help. Secondly, we have a bond fund. So we have a bond lending fund. So when folks end up in detention, usually they'll have a bond hearing if they get access to a courtroom. This bond will be anywhere from $1,000 to $15,000. It is much easier for folks to have to manage their deportation defense, surrounded by their loved ones, surrounded by a church community, surrounded by the support network, surrounded by fresh air and a park, and just the ability to live freely. Much easier for them to do that and to plead their case than from the inside of a jail cell. And so we connect folks with this bond fund. We post the bond for them. We help them out. We don't pay the full thing, but we help them out with like half of it. And then we will have folks pay it back to us interest-free. we are very lenient in our conditions for how they pay back the loan, because the point is to get folks out, not to be debt collectors. And we have seen a lot of people do fundraisers. We have seen a lot of individual donations. Individual donations are extremely important as well. If this is something you'd be interested in as well, here's a QR code to our donation page. You can also find me, or you can find Sister Janice after the fact, and we can talk about what a fundraiser would look like. We had a very successful fundraiser a few months ago. $18,000 were raised in one night. So there's a lot of interest. There's a lot of activity. We just need some people who are go-getters that can put the right people in the same room. So hoping that that's something that interests you as well. We also need to expand our footprint. You know, something I often like to say is that we don't change the world in our legislatures. We change the world at our kitchen tables. We start at our kitchen tables because those conversations with the people that we trust, with loved ones, when you change their minds, you give them the power to change other people's minds. When you can transform the hearts of those closest around you, that's the superpower you have. And that's how, when you become that drop of water that can then create more drops of water, we can eventually create a wave, right? So we want you to host a house party. What does that look like? I'm sure you have some friends that maybe you're a little shy about talking about this stuff, but that you think could get a good little push. I'm sure that you have some people that might disagree on this stuff, but that you think would be open to having a conversation. There might be some friends that couldn't make it today, but that you know would really benefit from having this sort of information. Well, we work with you to invite your neighbors, invite your friends, your community, and we host a facilitated conversation with you. Tell all of your friends to bring a pot of food with them. We'll have a little potluck, and we'll talk about the plight of immigrants in this day and age, what it means to own this moment as Americans, as neighbors in Franklin Park, in the city of Pittsburgh, in McCandless, in Pine Richland. How can you meet today's moment, right? Super low ask. We've had a lot of fun with it. People have had a lot of fun with it. So always looking to have more of those. And we believe that, you know, the key to this is celebration as well, and taking part in community, building relationship. And we want you to, speaking of, connect us to new communities. I want you all to assume that I am ignorant and that I have no friends. I want to meet all of your friends. I want to know all of the people that you know. I want to know how I can spread this message to all of the people you know. Plug us in. Where can we give another talk? Where can we have somebody facilitate a conversation? Where can we table if there's an event? Anything that we can do to be present in your community, in your sphere of influence, we want to do that, even if it's just an email. And lastly, you know, with a large dose of humility, we recognize that what we've just shown you is not the solution to everything. You know, we're chipping away at stuff in the way that we see it, but you all have different perspectives. And so if you think that there's another way in which we can be helping the community, helping your neighbors right now, we want to know about it. So shoot us a message because we want to know. Lastly, just a very quick thing. This is more so what to do if you do see ICE, right? Because we have seen a lot of this in this area specifically, in our backyards. This is what ICE will look like. I'm going to throw a few acronyms at you. Feel free to write it down or not. Either way, ICE stands for Immigration and Customs Enforcement. When they are carrying out a larger scale raid, when they are wearing a police uniform, these are all the different costumes that they'll use. For your purposes, immigration enforcement will have either ICE, as you can see at the very top up there on the back. They'll usually also wear police. It's important to know that they're not police. They're law enforcement that belong to a federal agency, and they have no jurisdiction over American citizens. So they can't arrest you for loitering or something like that, right? They would have to call local police. Local police would then have to figure things out. So something to know. HSI is another thing that we've seen that stands for Homeland Security Investigations. That's become extremely prevalent. Ooh, laser pointer. There you go. So HSI is also very common. We also see ERO, which stands for Enforcement and Removal Operations. Those are kind of like the top 3 acronyms that we're seeing here in southwestern Pennsylvania in terms of immigration enforcement. Now, on top of that, important to recognize that sometimes they may not be wearing ICE in bold like you see here, but it'll be on their badge. So it's important to also take a look at their badge or at their sleeve. You'll see this logo here. This is the Department of Homeland Security logo. You'll see it on TSA agents as well. So think about what you see at TSA when you get on a flight, same kind of deal. Lastly, CBP, Customs and Border Protection, you'll see within 100 miles of the border. We share a border with Canada at Erie and Lake Erie. So 100 miles down from that is just about Ross Park Mall, and then slanted like southeast or southwest on a line like that. So we're very much in the area of 100 miles from the border, and up in Cranberry as well, we have seen CBP before. They are allowed to do immigration checkpoints, which are very similar to like DUI checkpoints. You know, after prom, they're doing the breathalyzer on all the kids. Same thing, but with immigration papers. So we have seen ICE, ERO, HSI, CBP. Now, on top of that, since then, I haven't updated this, we have also seen FBI agents being deputized. So if you see FBI in a place where they're not supposed to, that merits a call to our phone number. We are also seeing alcohol, tobacco, and firearm, ATF, and DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency. They're all kind of working with ICE and with immigration enforcement. And we have also, this is a little more rare, but I did see it here in Allegheny County. The Postal Service has law enforcement. They have a law enforcement arm. Surprise, right? So it's not going to be your mailmen who are delivering mail to your door, but it's a specific law enforcement arm of the Postal Service. They have specially branded SUVs. It'll say USPS law enforcement. Very strange. There's actually an article in the Washington Post that came out last week that talked about how they were quietly cooperating with ICE. That same day, that morning, maybe 5 hours before I had read the article, I did see USPS around. And a few days before then, we had heard ICE agents in a courtroom talking about calling the post office. And we were like really confused about it, but then it all clicked. So that's another thing that if you see that, that's a big red flag. These are some pictures of a recent raid that took place maybe like a half hour from here up in Beaver. This is the kind of stuff you'll see. And these are the kinds of pictures that we want. So if you do see something that looks like a raid, I would ask you guys, take the time to maybe take some pictures from a place where you're safe. Take some videos if you can. Give us a call, let us know that something's happening so that we can dispatch legal observers out to take a look to verify that that is indeed ICE. All that is extremely important. You'll see we were able to count the amount of folks that were detained here. We talked with the manager of this establishment after the fact, and we were able to match sort of the number to the names that were on the warrant. There were actually more names on the warrant than there were people detained. So we tried to figure out like who was and wasn't detained and worked through all of that, sent an attorney out, contacted families, important stuff, right? But it all started because somebody was driving down the road and they said, that looks really weird. And they decided to take a few pictures and give us a call. It makes all the difference. So asking you guys to help us in that. I also wanted to show you a video of what ICE looks like when they're showing up to a house in plain clothes, because a lot of the time they will be in plain clothes. Let's see if it goes.
I don't think they speak English. All I hear is Spanish.
So what we're hearing right now is a neighbor speaking to ICE agents about whether or not the individual they're looking for is home.
For Edwin. No problemos.
No problemos, I guess.
Hello?
And so there are 6 to 7 agents in this interaction. I've only got a little piece of this. They're looking for one person. They're actually looking for a minor. They're posing as CYF agents in the county right now. So they'll show up seeking to have a welfare check on an unaccompanied minor. They have said to some folks that they're from the county. That's absolutely not the case. They will lie about who they are in order to have somebody open a door. And then a lot of times, the folks who are sponsoring unaccompanied minors might be undocumented. And so they'll use the opportunity to have that conversation to then ask folks for documents. Folks are deferential to authority, and then they end up in handcuffs, and then the child ends up in foster care, which is a very subpar system here in the county, and it's just kind of a bad situation. So just wanted to show you that. You'll see wearing a t-shirt, wearing kind of like slacks or like khakis. Sometimes they'll wear jeans and boots, like work shoes. Hats are also really prevalent with ICE agents. So if you're seeing hats in a space where there are no hats, that might be a tell. Like we've seen hats in courtrooms. And they will always be outnumbering the people that they're looking for. We have seen up to 17 agents arrive at a single family home. AR-15s, side pistols, the whole shebang. Insane. These guys have badges around their necks. Some of them just have them, you know, like in the movies where they flip them out and it's like a little wallet thing. Those are the things we've been seeing. As I said, things to notice and document. Officer's name and badge number. Did the officer have a warrant? What did the officer say? What did the affected person say? What did they look like? How were they dressed? License plate numbers and descriptions of vehicles are really important to us because they let us know more quickly as time goes on. We can cross-reference what's reported to us and what people are seeing on the ground. And that lets us get messages out much quicker to the community. And we want to know how people are being treated. So these are all things that we go into much more detail on in our rapid response training, but it's good to know for everybody in the community because you guys can all play a part. This is kind of around the last thing. I don't think you guys need to know too much of this, but you might have heard discourse around warrants. A lot of people have questions about this. ICE will use two different kinds of warrants, a judicial warrant and an administrative warrant. And so a judicial warrant kind of relates to the three constitutional rights that structure every interaction with law enforcement, which are the right to remain silent, the right to due process and counsel and an attorney, right? And then the right to avoid searches and seizures, to deny, refuse, that's the word, to refuse searches and seizures without a warrant or verbal consent. So that Fourth Amendment protection is strong unless they have a judicial warrant. And there's 6 key details, but the most important among them, at the top, the identification of a court, at the bottom, the signature of a judge, an expiration date, 2/3 down the page, and then the exact address and the exact name. Needs to match the address of the place they are searching. That means they cannot come into this church looking for me with my house address on the warrant. That's not how that works. You are allowed to take a picture of this. They usually leave a copy at the site in which they search a place or with the property owner. But this will grant them the ability to enter a private space or like a home, right? Now, they almost never have these because it takes a lot of time to go up in front of a judge and to say, hey, I'm looking for Jorge over here because I know he's going to be home at this time and he's a really bad guy and all this other stuff. It takes a lot of time to do that. But what they do use instead is what's known as an administrative warrant. So an administrative warrant is internal to an agency, internal to the Department of Homeland Security. It'll say that at the top, not a court. At the bottom, it'll be signed by an immigration official, not by a judge. And all it does is it grants ICE the authority to arrest someone in a public area. So that is not the inside of a church. That does not grant them the ability to go into a house, does not let them go into a sacristy, none of that stuff. So it's important to know that they'll frequently try to pass off an administrative warrant as a judicial warrant. They're not the same. It's important to know the difference. This is a phone number. I encourage all of you to put this in your phones and to share this on Facebook, on whatever social media you may use. Pass it along to your friends and family. Everyone should have this top number. This is our 24/7 ICE Watch hotline. Anytime we hear about a tip of a rumor or a report of ICE activity, you see something taking place, you see something in a Facebook page, assume we don't know about it and let us know. And then we'll dispatch folks out as quickly as we can. We can get folks out in under 20 minutes. Lastly, if you're interested in doing more and stepping up beyond what I've said, email me, jaime@casasanjose.org, Jaime. Lastly, we want you to do something, right? There are moments that every generation faces where there are very clear rights and wrongs. And I know that we all share the belief that it's important to not just talk about what we saw and what we said, but also about what we did. And so hopefully tonight, now you have a better foundation of what it is that we can do in this moment to meet this moment in history and to do something for the least among us. And I hope that you'll join me in this cause. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions? We have some questions.
So I volunteer in one of our local schools, and I'm just wondering what information you're giving to like the school boards and the administrators in the school. So if someone would come to the school and be let in, obviously the administrative warrant, they should know that they don't need to do that, but they should call you, I would assume, that that's what you would want them to do, to let them know that somebody's trying to get in there to get one of the kids.
Is this North Allegheny?
Beaver County.
Beaver County. Okay. So I've had, specifically because NA is home for me, right? I've had conversations with Dr. Hyland, the superintendent, and members of our school board. We've been having these same conversations across the county, and a lot of these school boards have the same solicitor. So that's important to recognize as well. But the solicitor has handed down guidance where if ICE were to try to enter a school, the folks that are at the front desk, do not let them in unless they have the permission of the superintendent in consultation with the solicitor. And so they would take all that information, take pictures, send that to the superintendent's office, and then they would consult with the legal counsel for the district to determine whether it's valid or not, and then let them in. But we've seen schools really step up.
Yeah, I have seen that too. And the other question I had was, as people are being, and I've just thought that through this, the whole thing with even the people that were deported to the Salvadorian prison, is anybody keeping note of who these people are so that they can contact their families? Or is there a list? Because I know even last time there's kids that they separated from and they still haven't reunited with their families. What kind of database is being kept about these people that are being treated like this?
Yeah, so from an ICE perspective, they have their own database. They don't let family members know. They do their own thing. From a community perspective, our system is only as good as people use it. So every time that we hear about a detention, our rapid response team members will take down all of the important information. They will dig around for an emergency contact or the contact of a loved one. And then we will collect all of that information. We're able to track where they are in the detention facilities. We'll be in touch with their families. And we also, since we have a lot of social workers and case managers, we have a community needs assessment in our incident reports. So let's say you show up to a house and the husband was detained, and now you figure out that the mother, the wife, has small children, but she doesn't work and she doesn't have access to the bank account. You note all of that stuff down in the report, and then we will contact that family for follow-up and say, hey, like, we heard this is like what you need. This is how we can set you up. And we're looking to expand that to also include religious organizations and parishes and churches like yours.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's hard for me to imagine that this Moshannon Processing Center just emerged since January. I mean, a facility that can house 1,500 people didn't get built overnight, I don't think. So it must have. Can you confirm that that existed under the Biden administration?
Yeah, and well, it was a federal prison.
Okay.
And then he closed the federal prison where it was then reskinned as a detention facility.
Okay.
So it did exist under the Biden administration.
I got it.
Right?
Thank you.
But it's also important to note that this is like Obama was a guy that was big into deportations, right? Like we have sleepwalked our way into what is going on right now. And so I don't think it's right to be pointing fingers at one specific president. Like this has been going on for a while.
I have two questions. One is, do you work with other people groups outside of the Latin Americans?
Yes. So
Okay.
our structure is meant to be the bigger, the better. The more people call, the better. And so we've been hearing folks that speak Arabic on the line, folks that speak Asian languages, French, Haitian Creole, all those, Portuguese, all those things. So
so it's anyone who is at risk
Correct.
that you help. Okay, that's good.
How often do you do all
We figure it out. God's grace.
Okay. The other question I have is, we have within our neighborhood some incredible neighbors who are from India, and they're having their jobs phased out, and they're beginning to get concerned because they're here on a work visa. I can't tell you, it's I don't know what it
An
is.
H-1B or something.
Yeah,
Mhm.
something like that. What types of work visas do they need to be concerned, or I mean, because we had ICE agents next door from the area where I live, in the apartments that are next to us. And it scared the bejeebies out of everybody who was there. I mean, we were shocked,
Yeah.
but they were swarming that whole complex over there. Yeah, this was probably, what did you say, 6 months ago or so? Yeah, about 6 months ago. Yeah, when the big cranberry hit happened.
Yeah.
So no, I'm going to give it to you. Don't worry. So I'm wondering, can we calm our neighbors down who are feeling at risk, who don't have green cards? You know?
So you can give them the phone number,
Uh-huh.
and then they can call us if something happens. We also
Okay.
provide Know Your Rights sessions. And if
Okay.
you would want to host a Know Your Rights session in your home, for example, and invite your
Uh-huh.
neighbors that are at risk,
Yeah.
education is the way that we calm folks down,
Okay.
right? So that they know what to do if something were to happen. ICE
Okay.
will prey on the ignorant and the isolated. And so the two antidotes to that are education and community. And that's what we're
Okay.
working on here.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have a question about the ICE agents.
Sure.
Who are these people? Are they bussed in here to make these arrests, or where do these people come from? Are they local or what?
Yeah, a lot of them are local. Most of them are local.
And they get jobs doing this
Correct.
through what agencies?
The Department of Homeland Security. It's a federal government job.
I've been wondering, if we see some of these people, have they been trained in how to treat people, people that they're arresting or abusing or whatever when you're on their porch, they're on your porch?
I'm sure they have. I don't have like a specific like statute or handbook that I can guide you to, but I'm sure they have, because it's a normal process that law enforcement goes through, right? Where they get like cultural competency training or something like that. But we've also seen instances, again, here in our backyard, where they are violent. Just down the road in Coriopolis, they kicked a 17-year-old kid who was fleeing 9 ICE agents. He was just biking on his way to work. 3 cars cut in front of him, 2 come in from the back. He's terrified because he's like, what is going on? He runs off. One of them gets close enough to kick him. I don't think that's in the handbook, right? Justin Cranberry, they took a 22-year-old kid out of a car with his partner in the passenger seat. They threw him out of the car. They threw him on the ground, and we believe that they tased him as well. And they did not ask him to produce identification until after he was shackled. So I don't think that's part of their rule book. I don't think that's how they're supposed to be. But when they don't wear body cameras, when they have the political mandate and a president who tells them to rough people up, they feel like they can do it. And so the best protection against that are eyes and ears from our community. If you're there and if you were to tell them, I'm recording you, why are you doing this? Every law enforcement officer ever has been told you are not to become a cost to this agency. How do they become a cost? Through a lawsuit. How does a lawsuit happen? Misbehavior caught on camera. And so you are the best protection for a lot of these folks at that moment.
You said earlier that you brought somebody home to Wexford today.
Correct.
That had been in a detention center.
Mhm.
How does that happen?
So we were put in touch with their family. They were able to get an immigration bond. So through our bond fund, we very quickly mobilized to get the money dispersed to the family, and we got that paid to ICE. And then they took a bus here to Pittsburgh this morning. We had a volunteer pick them up, and I got the privilege of being able to drive them home because family's around these parts for me. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have another question about ICE agents. Whenever the present administration scaled up this deportation, they needed an incredible number of new ICE agents. Do you have any background on where they came from, or whether these are all just new people with no experience, and that's part of the reason why they're treating people the way they are?
Yeah, so great question. I think part of this is recognizing that they're deputizing other federal agents that shouldn't be doing this work. And so that's what's giving them expanded capacity. So for right now, like we're seeing FBI, DEA, the Postal Service, ATF, people that really shouldn't be involved in carrying out these actions are doing it anyways. And then give it a few months, let the budget pass, and they're gonna have more money to hire more people and to expand their operations, better technology, all that sort of stuff. And so this is something that's gonna be ever expanding, in my opinion.
Any other questions? Okay, just a couple of things that I want to mention before we dismiss everybody. We've learned a lot today, and I always say at these kinds of things, it's great to know things. It's really wonderful to know things, but it doesn't matter what you know. What matters is what you do with what you know.
Amen.
So I am praying that each person sitting here will do something. We've got a lot of ideas, but do something. Take a look at those QR codes, volunteer, have a house party, do something, please. And one little thing we're going to just do tonight, I'm going to send this around. If you would like to make a donation tonight for Casa that we can send home with them, St. Brenda's is going to make a donation, but wouldn't hurt to send them home with a little something in their pockets. So thank you for coming tonight. I'm going to turn it over to, I'm sorry.
Sister Karen is our development director and finance person. And if I didn't say this, it'll be the first thing she asks me when I get home. We have a major annual fundraiser called Fiesta del Sol, and you can find it on our website. I think probably Marilyn can give you our website. The Fiesta del Sol will be happening in June, and please attend if you can. Thank you so much.
I want to turn it over now to Daryl to send us a benediction. Absolutely, you can go wherever you want.
Someone from our parish, can you hear me? Someone from our parish gave me a particular podcast that I have been listening to the last few weeks, and I want to leave you with that podcast. It's sponsored under MSNBC, and this is for educational purposes. The name of the podcast is called Main Justice. Please write that down. Main Justice. You can Google it to get to it. New episodes every Tuesday, but I would wait till Wednesday because they don't upload them uniformly. Now, this particular podcast is hosted by Andrew Weissman. If that rings a bell? And Mary McCord. That may ring a bell as well. They were members of the Justice Department for forever, and then became affiliated with MSNBC. It is one of the best podcasts I have ever listened to. Now, they go deeply, deeply, deeply into legal details. Don't be turned off by that. It's important that we understand what are the particulars of each and every one of these high-level legal cases that are being brought against the administration. Okay? So you're going to hear about the details of the Supreme Court cases. You're going to hear about the details of various justices who are handling some of these major, major court cases. So I think it's really in our circumstances now, I think it's incumbent on us to become educated and to understand what the resistance looks like. Yeah? Okay. That's my commercial. Thank you. Let us pray. Dear gracious God, we thank you for bringing us together this night. We thank you for Casa San Jose and the sharing, the information, the education that they are bringing to us. We ask you to grace us with your spirit in the days ahead, such that each one of us can understand what we are called to do. And all this we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you all again for coming. Thank you. We raised a lot of money, over $350. Thank you. Didn't expect that.